From the West Coast to the East Coast, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin still has not had a below 500 record. And you say to yourself, Joe, how the fuck is that possible with them being the worst team in the AFC the last 25 years? That's such a good question, guys, because since the dawn of dinosaurs, it feels like Pittsburgh hasn't fucking won anything.
They haven't. That's why.
But Mike Tomlin is still a good head coach.
But individually, they've won more than they've lost.
Oh, my God.
That's an
Mike
amazing
Tomlin,
stat.
same head coach. Despite how much I will make fun of this man, I don't mind the Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. The best time he was the best coach was when he was in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator. Remember, he had Ryan Tannehill, and that's the only time Ryan Tannehill's looked good playing football.
I'm about to say, that was his comeback of the year.
I know. That's the only time he's looked good playing football.
Forgot about that.
That bodes well for the new quarterback 1, Russell Wilson, currently being drafted as quarterback 31. Also bodes well for kick returner 1, also known as quarterback 2, Justin Fields. If you're laughing at me, Madden did put him at kick return in their kick return commercial that they had for Madden 25. Justin Fields was fucking returning kicks. That's not a joke.
That is ragging this man. Like, it's bad.
Insane. RB1, Najee Harris, also known as great value Derrick Henry for this year because of Arthur Smith. Jalen Warren, RB25. Cordell Patterson.
Yes.
I mean, Scott Fishbowl dog, if you ask me, in my opinion, but he's the RB3. Wide receiver 1, George Pickens at wide receiver 28. Roman Wilson, wide receiver 72. Calvin Austin III, wide receiver 103. Van Jefferson, 128. Pat Freiermuth is tight end 14, but that doesn't matter because you really want Darnell Washington.
Oh, God.
Undrafted.
6'7", baby.
6'7", but that doesn't matter. He's the backup tight end.
He's the backup tight end.
Jonnu, let's go.
Exactly.
Jonnu, dog, who will be brought up later. LaQuan, you did quarterback in the first one. You did quarterback in the second one. You want to talk about Russell Wilson. This man is the second to last starting quarterback being drafted according to ADP right now on Underdog. Go ahead, Ryan.
And in more than one draft, I am seeing Justin Fields go ahead of Russell Wilson in best ball.
That's very interesting. So what do we think, LaQuan?
I did that in a couple of best ball leagues to kind of just spread it out, but I'm going to take Russell Wilson if he's going to remain this cheap, because I feel like, man, you look at Arthur Smith, his system, his scheme. What is he going to do? There's going to be a ton of play action. So we know Russell Wilson, that's kind of his bread and butter. And this isn't like the last 4 years or the last 3 years. This is like the last 2 seasons where he's been decent on the deep ball and in play action. So if you're giving him something to where he can really tap back into somewhat of the Seahawks form, because that guy is long gone, but you can still see him in the rear view. Like, he still flashed some abilities last season to where that's why Cortland Sutton was able to have as many touchdowns he was able to have. So you still have somebody that's a great decision maker. He had 26 touchdowns. I think it was 5 interceptions. But when we look at that backup, Justin Fields, he has issues with turning the ball over. He has issues throwing the ball deep. These are big things that are like an issue for him to actually step into that starting role. So if you're going to give me a starting quarterback and a new system, or a system that kind of like caters to him, I will take the shot on him as a QB2, where he can have some really spike weeks where you're having George Pickens going crazy, blowing the coverage, and you have Roman Wilson being a reliable third down, wide receiver and a sneaky red zone threat there as well. And then you have Van Jefferson. He's a guy that's kind of the wild card that we don't know with a run-first offense. So I think you're giving Russell Wilson exactly what he kind of needed in Denver, because he did take a step forward, even though Sean Payton was not the best fit for him. But I feel as though there's still some good quality football out of him.
Any thoughts on the Wilson-Justin Fields debate?
Now, Wilson is a very interesting quarterback in non-best ball super flex leagues, because he is going to start the season as the starting quarterback, and you're able to get him dirt cheap because everyone's afraid of what's going to happen. Well, what I know is going to happen is, for a month at minimum, he's going to be the starter. And if he goes out there and plays well, then you just got a 16, 17 game starter for next to nothing in a super
for free.
So, yeah.
And
he's a good
it's not
value
like he played in fantasy. It's not like he was horrible last year.
No. Well,
27 touchdown passes.
I was gonna say he did well. It was a shock when the Broncos did what they did. Like it just
it was the
didn't make
defense
sense.
that really turned it around. Like after week 5 or 6, they kind of just went on a mean streak of just shutting it down.
Yep.
So it happens when you get embarrassed by Miami.
I say, and then Denver shut him down.
Yeah. Look, who would have thought the ego of Sean Payton and the ego of Russell Wilson wouldn't work in the same locker room? Who would have thought? I mean, I'm not even. Russ is very clearly a steal at where he is going.
Yeah.
Assuming, like, again, he plays all 16, 17, so it's a good look. Going to the backfield, Josh, you have Najee. He's RB21 currently. Again, is this the Arthur Smith hype? What he did with Derrick Henry and Tennessee? He knows how to use a big back like this, and we've been waiting for Najee Harris to have an offense that can work around him. Or are we just completely forgetting that their offensive line is still bottom 2 in the league? How do we feel?
Well, it's a little of both. They've made improvements on the offensive line. It's just going to take some time, right? Like they spent their first 2 draft picks this year on offensive linemen. They're young, right? They're not going to start gelling right in the first month of the season. But we saw improvements from this offensive line towards the tail end of last year. They had a rookie left tackle. They had 2 fresh starting guards in Samalu and James Daniels. So like there's a lot of cohesion that needed to work with this offensive line. Now you're adding in 2 new pieces and a brand new system, right? It's going to take a little bit of time to get going. But the one thing I do know is that Najee Harris, for all the shit that we give him for how inefficient he is, he had his best yards per carry last year. It was only 4.1, but it was still the best of his career. That's a positive sign, right? So now let's take into account the system. Arthur Smith, his last 4 years as a play caller, 3 times he has called over 500 rush attempts. He is going to run the damn football.
Yeah.
And the only time he didn't top that was his lone season as a play caller with Matt Ryan, which is hardly shocking because Matt Ryan's going to throw the football. You bring in an older quarterback like Russell Wilson, you're not going to rely on him to throw the football 600 times. He's never proven to be effective at quarterbacking, throwing the football that many times. Limit how many times he throws the football, develop a quality running game, you're going to have success. 3 straight years, Najee Harris has been over 250 carries. He averages over 9 touchdowns total per season. You tell me you can get a guy as your RB2, possibly even your RB3, that can total 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. I'm going to take that value all day, every day. RB21 is a screaming value for Najee Harris, even if he's splitting time and yielding the bulk of the passing work to Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, Najee has gotten better as a runner every year. The issue is Jaylen Warren has taken up all those valuable targets. And so for fantasy managers, you're not seeing the return on investment for Najee. Najee's ending up in a situation that we love to talk about where he's going to be better for his NFL team than he might be for your fantasy team. But as Josh pointed out, you're not paying for him to be your RB1 like you were after that rookie year.
Correct.
So you're not super concerned about it. I keep using best ball because it's what I've been doing for the last month. You're able to land him as your 3 and 4 a lot of times. I'm shocked that the number 21 is where he falls in because I feel like I've been getting him far later than that in drafts. So.
He's going like 7th, 8th round. Like that's just stupid right now.
So go ahead, LaQuan.
No, I was going to say, I agree with most of you guys are saying. It's just that I personally have been fading him, not because of anything against what you guys said. It's more so I like Jaylen Warren better for what Arthur Smith is looking for. Because I feel like even in the passing game, Najee will get his peppered and Warren does, but Warren is just so much more explosive. And if you're going to put a run-first offense, and nobody's ran outside the tackles more than Arthur Smith these past 2 seasons, that's really where Jaylen Warren shined last year, was outside the tackles. So there can easily be a tip of a hat or a hot hand situation in middle of the game after halftime where Najee's not going to become more effective. I think Najee will get the bulk of his fantasy points in the beginning of the game. And then once we start seeing this running game going and play actions going, you want big play guys like Jaylen Warren, who's also a great 3rd down back. So that's why I feel as though it's going to get a little bit messy to where Najee might be better for real life football. Fantasy, he might be a headache some weeks.
Yeah, Warren with over 5 yards per carry, like LaQuan brought up, they're going to run to the outside. It's going to be a fun team to watch, to be honest. If you like running the football, if you find that to still be an interesting part of the game, Steelers are going to be interesting just because they're better built for it than the Falcons were, even with Bijan Robinson, just because the Falcons didn't have a chance to establish that mentality yet. The Steelers have established that run first mentality.
And we also forget who Arthur Smith is. Like, do we remember Bijan screaming for goal line carries? Like, why is Tyler Algier taking all this work? Why is Johnny Smith taking carries? Why the hell is Cordero Patterson taking carries on the red zone? Like, you got to look at who the coach is. Like, he doesn't care that Najee is the RB1, but he's probably going to throw in Jalen Warren in those situations. You're going to be like, yo, what is happening?
Yeah,
so,
if you don't,
and that's where his ADP makes it perfectly fine to select him.
100%.
We were all mad. We were more mad at this at Arthur Smith last year because we spent top 5 picks on Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, but it all comes down to your expectations of, like, you're dealing with a mad scientist. Like, he's probably purposely going to piss us off. And I honestly
and
think
that's fine.
Like
if I'm drafting him as my RB3 and I get RB15 work, that's a win for me because I'm not.
You can also get James Conner.
He's going to be a top 10 running back for me.
Joe Mixon's like you can avoid this headache with RB1.
You could get James Conner a full round later, actually.
There you go.
So you could get both when you think about it, which is where the would you rather game comes in. LaQuan, your favorite game.
I wonder if Ramondre falls into this range.
He does.
Well, based on my drafts, I felt like he did because I've been taking Ramondre over Harris every time. So.
As you should, but let me spoil it for you. He's at 21, Najee. We have 19, 20, 22, and 23. Aaron Jones or Najee Harris, LaQuan?
Najee Harris.
Ryan?
Najee.
Josh?
Najee.
This is a huge anti-Aaron Jones show, so that is very...
Hey, my last name Jones. He might be a cousin or something. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Who knows? Ramondre Stevenson or Najee Harris?
Najee.
LaQuan. Yeah. What? Ryan?
Ramondre.
Josh?
I have them 0.44 fantasy points apart.
Leaning
Najee.
I want to kick you in the nuts. Are you serious? You moron.
That's how my projections went out. So
Ramondre Stevenson. Jonathan Brooks or Najee Harris? LaQuan.
Najee Harris.
Ryan.
Najee.
Josh.
Najee.
How I draft in this situation, I am taking Jonathan Brooks because at this point, this is probably my 4th running back.
Yeah, you're going based on upside, and there's no upside.
Yeah. For people that are like maybe like wait to take their 2nd running back at this point in time, take Najee Harris.
For the 26 people who took wide receivers in the first 2
rounds. For the 26 people that took wide receivers in the first 3 rounds, maybe take Najee Harris here. Don't be like me and take Jonathan Brooks. And then last guy, Najee Harris or Zamir White, LaQuan.
Ooh, that's a good one, actually.
I think this one's pretty close.
It is close. It can go either way. Toss up for me, honestly. So I'll say Zamir.
Ryan.
I would go Najee, but I see the point.
Josh.
Yeah, I do love Zamir, but it's Najee for me.
You don't have him 0.44 fantasy points.
No, I have Najee quite a bit ahead of Zamir.
You dumbass. And then Jalen Warren has actually jumped DeAndre Swift. Jalen Warren is now RB24. DeAndre Swift is now RB25. So that's how close Najee and Jalen Warren are in ADP currently. But as we move outside to Mr. George Pickens. Now I knew Ryan's tone on George Pickens a while back.
Been all over the place.
And I told him, I said, Ryan, if he's the only guy with Russell Wilson as his quarterback, you can't not like him. So I'm very interested to see where Mr. Ryan Weisse lands here.
I bought all the way in, especially at this ADP.
You're fucking right, you did.
I already know what Josh is going to say because he made the mistake of coming at me publicly. And he's making the exact...
This is a Drake and Kendrick situation?
It is. Yes.
He made the mistake of coming at me, so I released Not Like Us.
Exactly. Full beef at this point. But the long and short of it is, when you look at Arthur Smith's history as an offensive coordinator, you have A.J. Brown scoring 8 and 11 touchdowns in his 2 years with Arthur Smith. You have George Pickens, who is the only wide receiver, and an Arthur Smith that has shown you he's willing for his offense to funnel targets to his wide receiver 1. If we're talking about a George Pickens with over a 25% market share, obviously target share. We know his yards per catch are going to go down. But while we did not see the touchdowns from Drake London, I'm more confident we'll see them from George Pickens, but I'm way more confident we're going to see a ton of targets. Wide receiver 28 is an easy hurdle for me to climb here. I think George Pickens is likely to be a top 15 wide receiver.
Tell me more. Tell me more. Yep. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead. I know you're wrong. You're always wrong. Continue.
You think George Pickens is the next AJ Brown?
Not necessarily. AJ Brown's a top 10 wide receiver, but I think Pickens is going
Well, AJ Brown is literally the only top 20 wide receiver that Arthur Smith has ever coached when it comes to fantasy points per game. Ever.
And now,
Arthur Smith
has never scored more than 6 touchdowns in a season. Ever.
Okay, hold on.
Ever.
He's had the combination of the 4 of us throwing him the fucking football.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm going all the way back
I was
to
about
Georgia.
to say that.
I'm going all the way back to
two
Georgia.
sides to this.
He's never scored more than 6 in Georgia.
This is the best quarterback he's had.
Wasn't it?
I
Wasn't
agree.
it?
It
Wasn't
just
his
might be.
Didn't his quarterback just get out of rehab? Like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking? His quarterback is barely making an XFL roster. What do you mean?
I'm just saying, we can sit here and talk all the, like, he's not AJ Brown. He's not like stupid, high efficient, high catch rates, that kind of thing. Like, he can get down the field. I get that. It fits with Russell's deep ball. Arthur Smith galaxy brains way too much for me to buy in on George Pickens. Way too fucking much.
How so? Are you worried? Because the target share should be there with no issue.
You would think. He's only had one wide receiver that's ever topped 21% target share.
And that was
That was Drake London,
okay.
who did next to nothing with it.
So
Okay,
He was
that's a
throwing
Drake
him the
London
football.
here's the thing also of buying in George Pickens. You also have to keep it in the back of your mind that what if Russell sucks and he gets benched? Now you're dealing with a quarterback.
now-
That's my point.
And
Like,
Justin Fields comes
Justin
in
Fields is going to be a
and
downgrade.
shoves his fist up the Chicago Bears organization.
If Justin Fields starts, you're going to get a production outcome of like Drake London, but slightly more touchdowns. But it's not going to be worth dealing with that headache of the possible quarterback change midseason. So
But here's my thing. The Justin Fields has what, like 5 passes a game where you're like, holy shit, this man's a Hall of Famer. The other 30 look like he's a Division III backup, but those 5 look really good. And those 5 tend to be down the field. You know who's down the field? If you're telling me George Pickens could go 5 for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, that's all we need every single game.
but those are efficiency numbers that only happen if you're Devon Achane.
Okay, fine. 2 for 100 and a touchdown, Josh. Jeez. But
I know that's
twist my
next.
arm. He's Will Fuller from 7 years ago. What do you want from me?
So a broken pinky's going to end his career?
No. No, the drugs ended Will Fuller's career. Very well could be George Pickens also. I mean, he did go to Georgia, but I'm just saying the drugs ended Will Fuller, not the pinky. All right. His ego may also end his career.
Yeah.
Multiple factors with this man. But come on. He's one of the best sideline receivers in the NFL. You can't change
It's
best
just
fucking
at
footwork.
28. Like, why not? Like, it's not even
There's
close.
better wide receivers that I would rather have there.
You know what, Josh? That's great fucking transition.
Perfect segue
buddy.
for you, Joe.
Yeah, it's like we've been doing the show for 7 years. All right, let's hear how Josh is wrong about everything here.
I don't even think I have to hear a name, but I'll play, I guess.
Okay. LaQuan, to you first, as always. Zay Flowers or George Pickens?
George Pickens.
Ryan.
Pickens.
Josh.
Flowers.
Okay. T. Higgins or George Pickens? LaQuan.
T.
Ryan.
Pickens.
Josh.
That one I would take Pickens.
I go Pickens. Amari Cooper or George Pickens? LaQuan.
Amari Cooper.
Ryan.
Pickens.
Josh.
Jesus.
Oh, I really want to say Cooper. I just don't trust Deshaun Watson.
If you told me they re-signed Joe Flacco and could
Oh my
guarantee
God, I'd
me
be all
God.
in on Cooper.
Amari
He'll be a
Cooper.
top 12 wide receiver.
Amari Cooper would be my first wide receiver taken.
I say over CD Lamb.
I would put him over CeeDee Lamb in a
I think that
heartbeat.
really though there are
I'll put
very
him over
similar
Puka.
situations when you look at the issues at quarterback. Like we literally brought up, we don't know if Russ actually plays all season. Maybe they do pivot to Justin Fields, right? What Deshaun Watson are we getting? Houston 2020 or what? The shoulder
Cleveland
issue from last
2023.
year? That exactly. So like there's a lot of similarities in there, and at that point, I would much rather take the more savvy route runner, and that's Amari Cooper.
Before I get to the last guy, if or when Anthony Richardson gets hurt and Joe Flacco comes in,
Michael Pittman.
what are you doing to go get Michael Pittman on your team? What are you doing?
He's already on my team. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If Joe's in the building, he's on my team.
if when A-Rich gets hurt, Michael Pittman is a must start. I don't care if he sees 2010 Darrelle Revis. He is a must start.
I'll do some shady commissioner stuff and just move him to my team.
Yeah. Oh my God! ESPN glitched. I don't know what happened.
It's mine now.
Okay, last guy that of all of these, I would take him over George Pickens. Christian Kirk or George Pickens, LaQuan.
Christian Kirk.
Ryan.
I know who Kirk is. Give me George Pickens.
Josh.
Christian Kirk, very easily.
I think Christian Kirk is once again criminally underrated at wide receiver
Always.
30. Again, all I'm seeing is
I'll give you that. I'll still take him ahead of wide receiver 30. I'm just not taking him ahead of Pickens.
Yeah, that's fair. All I'm seeing is that I can walk away with Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, and still be satisfied with Cooper Kupp and George Pickens as my top 2 receivers. And then, hell, get Christian Kirk in there as well. And then, fuck it, Jonathan Brooks. What is this drafting right now? What is happening? It's fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. Vince. Yeah. Oh, psych. Yeah, we are discussing George Pickles. Sucks for you, though. It's over. So you just missed it. Josh, I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, I did. I was cracking open my drink.
Yeah, and I'm very happy you did because the shit you spewed in the last segment was really tough about George Pickens.